There it is. Again, just there, in my world, where it has no right to be, and it's just dangling so. It's right there, right in front of me, so provocative, dangling in my face, taunting me, daring me. How can I not? How can I resist? Why should I resist? She knows the rules. She knows full well what she's doing. Do I go insinuating myself into her world? No, I don't. Not ever. I know my place and I stay there. I know the boundaries and the rules just as well as she. Her world, my world, it's clear. We had an understanding. I stay out of her world. She stays out of mine. Harmony, coexistence, order. That's the balance that allows us both to go on. It works. Neither one of us needs to bother the other. We keep to ourselves until one of us goes and does that. The big no-no. One of us just lets it dangle in the other's face, challenging the other to fight the urge and leave it alone. But how can one change one's nature? It's impossible. How could anybody leave it alone? You don't tease the wolf by parading your nice plump sheep in its face. Don't expect the wolf to go easy on the sheep. A wolf does what a wolf does. A wolf has needs. And this is the same thing exactly. Just different animals, different quarry, different meat. It's not right to expect me not to when I am the wolf and she is the sheep. I can't fight my nature anymore. Then the wolf can. But we all have our decisions. She's made hers. And now I have the choice to make. Do I do it? Or do I ignore it and let it go? Do I let it slide? Again? I don't know that I should this time. Maybe this has happened once too often. Maybe this is the last straw. There's only so much I can take before I take what's on offer. And I can just imagine how glorious it would be. I can picture it right now. I can almost taste the anticipation, the victory, the conquest. I can. I can taste it. And maybe I should taste it, because that's what this all boils down to, does it not? She is daring me not to taste it. But how would she feel then? I ask you. She would regret it. That's how. She would rue the day she let it just hang there. That one last time that was one time too many. But it would be too late for her to take it back at that point. It would be gone by then. I'd have taken the bait and would have relished doing so. And for what? Why did she do it? One can only imagine. The wolf doesn't know what the sheep thinks. As it pounces, it wouldn't be nice to know. It was all your own fault, though. Of that I'm sure. Knowing you asked for it. Because that's exactly what she's doing. She's asking for it. She's begging me for it. She's begging me to do it. But is that what she really wants? Or is she just flirting with me, toying with me, showing me what I can't have? But if that's her game, she's wrong. She's lost. Because it's right there. Just dangling. I can have it. I have absolute control. Best video game consoles, I need to make a decision. Do I do what I do best and take what's on offer? Or do I show mercy and let it slide? Just one more time. Everything hangs in the balance here. Because I can't decide. So, what do I do if I can't decide? I don't have a coin to toss. I don't have a magic 8 ball to divine an answer for me. It's up to me to make the call. And if I think about it, does that make the challenge even more exciting? It does, in fact. Yes, I love that this is my call. I hold the cards and her future in my hands. That is true power. I could just reach out right now and take the low-hanging fruit. But would it be what I expect it to be? Would it live up to my expectations? Would it be as satisfying as I'm picturing it? Or would it disappoint? Well, there's only one way to find out. So I guess that's it then. I'm going to do it. The cards are dealt. It's really happening this time. I've pictured this more often than I can remember. I've let her get away with this too many times out of a sense of restraint, or charity, or something. But that charity ends now. Charity begins at home, they say. And that thing is dangling in my home, just where it really should not be. This won't be pretty. She'll be sorry, bringing that thing into my home, that foot of hers, in my home, in my world, just dangling there over the edge of the bed. It's unsocked, that foot, naked, vulnerable. But even so, if she thinks that a thin veil would protect it while she sleeps, she has another thing coming, because nothing can stop me. Nothing can keep it safe. That pink, wholesome flesh. There is no protection. It's all mine. It is history. Done for. Enough talking. No more Mr. Nice Guy. This time it's the real deal. I'm making my move. And so I crawl and creep toward it, from under the bed, just where she knows I am, here in the dark. But does she know I'm here? Of course she does. She's always known it. She loves it. But she won't love it in a moment. Not at all. This will be very ugly, very brutal. But not for me. For me, this will be exquisite. This will be everything I ever dreamed. It could be. And I'm almost there, about to fulfill my purpose. I can just reach out easily now and pluck. It's gone. It's that close, that simple, and closer I creep still. I can creep as slowly as I want and with all the patience in the world, because this is the deal we made, even though she didn't quite believe it was real. She'd always suspected, been paranoid it could be so, in the dark recesses of her mind. Ever since she was a child, she inherently feared this, and she's about to find out she was right to fear it. I'm there. I was always there, lying in wait for a moment, just like this. And the moment is almost over now. Because look at it. Just look at it. That lovely foot, and those lovely fat little toes. I could eat them one by one, pluck them right off the vine, like Mourvedre grapes, juicy and ripe. Those toes aren't hers anymore. Not since she dangled them down into my world. Now they're mine. And there's only one place they're going. In just one swift movement, they'll be inside me, gobbled up, bitten clean off by my perfect sharp teeth. My, what big teeth you have, Mr. Wolf. Oh, yes. You bet I have. Because this is my purpose. To use my teeth on things that dangle. I bite them right off. And I don't care one iota that she's asleep. It's just tough. It's her fault. Because in I go now. In for the kill. I'm there. My mouth is round it. It's practically already done. It's in my mouth. I just need to bite down and let it be over. Bite it right off. I could pull away, though, if I chose. Show mercy. Let it go. And she would never know how close she had come to losing it. That foot and those silly pink toes. But I won't pull away. Not this time. No, I'm going for it. But what? How? I don't understand. We had a deal. She put it there. She dangled it into my world, did she not? It was there, plainly, dangling over the edge of the bed. How could she do this to me? The bargain had been made. I went in for the kill. I went in to bite, as was my right, but she moved it. She took it away just before I could bite it clean off. So that's it then. She's won. She's survived. Again. I was too slow. I see that now. But I won't make that mistake next time. Because there will be a next time. I'll address my nature, my performance, my failure. For next time. Because she can't help herself. She wants it. She loves it. This danger. This fight. This game of cat and mouse. Wolf and sheep. And I know. She will certainly do it again. It will dangle again in my world. Maybe tomorrow night. Maybe the next. And if it does, I'll be ready. I'll be just here, lying in wait, in my world, right here, under the bed, where everyone knows I am, just waiting for it to dangle. I used to like to go exploring in the woods. Not anymore. My name is Jake Summersville. My mom and dad both have advanced degrees in agricultural sciences, whatever that means. They would survey land, crops, sometimes even the local wildlife. I wasn't sure what exactly it was they did, but I knew it was why we moved around a lot. I didn't mind, though, after all. I liked exploring, sometimes pretending I was Indiana Jones, searching for some lost ancient civilization. Sure, I've had my fair share of close calls, but nothing serious ever happened to me. At least, not until we moved to a small town in Missouri. I don't remember the name of it due to the mental trauma I experienced, or so my psychiatrist says, but I do remember Zach Mays. Zach was 9 years old that summer, the same age as me. He was into a lot of the same things I was, especially exploring. I met him when my parents moved into this farmhouse. It wasn't big or fancy or neat like the usual houses we rented, but it had a sort of rustic charm to it. Zach's parents owned the land the house was on and the property next door, where they lived. They were friendly enough, even offering to help my parents get settled in. As they were handing the house keys to my parents, Zach came around the corner, held out his hand, and announced who he was. I was never the one to make friends, what with the constant moving around and whatnot. But something about Zach just clicked. We had moved at the start of summer break, so Zach and I had plenty of time to play. We'd mostly go exploring, capturing small animals, and releasing them back into the wild. We had all of 4 acres to ourselves, except for the area near the edge of the property line. That was the start of the woods. Naturally, both of our parents forbade us from going in there, but we did anyways. We'd clear our own trails, pretending we were in a lush jungle. One time, Zach swore he saw a copperhead, but we never did find it. At first, we'd stay relatively close to the edge, but as time went on, we became more relaxed. Before long, we were trekking deep into the woods, able to find our way back with markers we'd given names to. One day, at the edge of the property line, we came across a patch of woods that were different, somehow, darker. Thorn bushes were common in the woods, but this place was completely covered in them. In fact, it was so thick we couldn't hope to gain entry. We walked around it for what seemed like hours, but never did find a way past those thorns. As time passed, we forgot about that place in the woods. After all, there was so much left to explore. Best video game consoles. To my delight, my parents told me that we were going to be here for a while, something to do with anomalies in the surrounding forest. Zach and I ended up in the same classes, and before we knew it, we were fast approaching Halloween. The forest, which was once green and beautiful, so full of life, had transitioned into a graveyard of fallen leaves and claws reaching despairingly into the sky. It was like they were begging the sky to return the leaves to them. On October 30th, Zach was staying over at my place for the night. It was just the two of us in the middle of nowhere. Our parents had gone to some boring adult dance party where kids weren't allowed. We were sitting on the floor in front of the TV watching horror movies when out of nowhere Zach elbowed me in the side. Scowling, I asked him what the big deal was, and his face lit up. "Do you remember that thorny part of the forest?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "Why?" "Let's go in there. Everything's dried up. We can cut through those thorns easily now." I was hesitant first. Something about that idea seemed off. seemed wrong, but I didn't want Zack to think I was a chicken, so reluctantly, I agreed. We grabbed our backpacks, stuffing them with supplies for our adventure. Zack placed a pair of garden shears and a spare flashlight in his, while I grabbed a map of the area, some batteries, and an extra flashlight for mine. We then grabbed our jackets and a pair of flashlights, then headed out the door towards the woods. The moon was blood red and full that night, bathing everything in that eerie hue. It was almost as if the very earth itself were stained with blood. It had been a while since either of us had been in the woods, what with school and all, but we found our landmarks with ease. I didn't know it at the time, but those landmarks would save my life. Before long, we were at the edge of the property line, staring at that part of the forest, which we've never been able to enter before. Look, they're gone, exclaimed Zack. Sure enough, the thorn bushes had vanished. It was almost as if the forest itself wanted us to enter. There was something foreboding about this part of the forest, while the surrounding trees stretched their branches outwards in all directions. The trees in front of us grew closely together, their branches reaching inwards into the darkness. I felt a chill run down my spine, and suddenly I didn't want to go in there anymore. Zack must have felt it too, because he shivered for a moment. We flipped on our lights and peered into the darkness. Upon closer inspection, the thorns were still present. They just were cleared to form a path into the woods. Zack knelt down, a puzzled look on his face. I don't see any tracks, human or animal, going into the forest, Zack said. We concluded that someone, or something, must have cleared that path some time ago. Whatever had, it didn't look like it was still around, or had been back in quite a long time. I didn't like it. The way the trees were so unnaturally bent made me feel as if the forest were waiting to swallow us whole. As ghastly as that sounded, that wasn't the most disturbing part. What was disturbing was I felt compelled to go into those woods. Zack and I looked at one another before moving on. We walked in between the thick trees, our flashlights providing the only source of light in the otherwise pitch-black woods. The night was silent, spare for the sound the leaves made as we walked on top of them. I couldn't help thinking they sounded like bones crunching beneath our feet. Occasionally, the trees would part, allowing the moon's red hue to trickle down them like blood. I was relieved when we at last emerged from the forest into a clearing. The trees opened up to a flat field that had to be at least an acre, maybe more. The ground was barren, spare for a few trees here and there. In the middle was what appeared to be a lake. I had grabbed a map earlier and pulled it out of my bag. I had our property drawn on it with the woods circled. There were no bodies of water anywhere near our property on the map. I handed the map to Zack, trying to shake the feeling that something was off. We couldn't have walked for more than 5 minutes, I said. Zack looked as confused as I was. We tried to locate ourselves on the map, but aside from the lake, there were no other defining features. At that moment, my gut was telling me to go back, to get the hell out of there. But then Zack started walking towards the lake, so I followed. He reached it before I did, and let out a gasp. Dude, come look at this, he said, in almost a whisper. It's not right. Those words would haunt me for the rest of my life. It almost felt as though my legs had a mind of their own, moving on their own accord. Before long, I was standing next to Zack at the edge of the water. It didn't take me long to see what he meant. Our reflections weren't in the water, but everything else was only different. A few trees grew along the shoreline, but what was reflected back was, well, I don't know what to call it. The trees, instead of being barren, were covered in what looked like flesh. It was then that I noticed we weren't the only things not reflected on the water's surface. The sky, blood moon and all, was also absent. In its place was a seemingly endless black void. That's so weird, Zack mumbled. Zack's voice freed me from my trance. He walked along the bank until he found what he was looking for, a stick. I don't think we should be here, I said to Zack, but he just ignored me. It was as if something was making him pick up that stick. As Zack approached the surface, I saw the water move, as if there was something just beneath the surface. I tried to call out his name, but no sound came out of my mouth. I just stood there, frozen to the spot, as he knelt down, prodding the surface of the water with the stick. He did this a few times, then stood up and looked at me.